On this episode of DLN Xtend, we will have a spirited conversation about ProtonDB's rating system. This episode of DLN Xtend is brought to you by DigitalOcean and Bitwarden. Welcome to episode 36 of DLN Xtend. DLN Xtend is a community-powered podcast. We take conversations from places like the Discourse, Telegram group, and Discord server, so much more. We also take topics from around the network and give you our take. With me today is the wonderful Nate, who is a vintage tech enthusiast with a totally, according to Matt, unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And my other fantastic host today is Matt, the Linux game enabler and always having some funky tech in the background. What are you up to today, Matt?
I do not totally get what you mean. I would never make game recommendations ever or enable people to
never. I think that lie isn't working very good for every other person on the network now.
No,
so yeah,
Matt, nobody believes you, Matt.
That is totally their problem, not mine. I just make the recommendation. I don't force you to be able to click the big old buy button. That's your responsibility.
So it's like me holding out a bowl of ice cream that's melting in my hands to my kids and say, "Hey, here you go. Don't eat it."
That's how you want to look at it. Well, that might be how you want to look at it. I'm doing all right. This week's just been really personally hectic. I haven't had a lot of time to really do much for myself. So I don't have any weird projects or anything I've been working on. Still using Ubi ports on the Pine phone. That's pretty much my biggest thing. For those that do use Ubi ports on the Pine phone, I would recommend enabling the dev channel for the updates because you will see significant improvement over the stock stable image. So just a recommendation there, though. So Nate, what have you been up to, bud?
Well, quite a bit, actually. The main thing I'm working on right now, and Matt, I blame you partially. At least I'm going to blame you, even if it's not true. Is I have too many video game things. Most of them are vintage because I'm a vintage tech enthusiast. But I have things that are not quite vintage yet. Like I wouldn't consider like the GameCube vintage yet because I don't know, I just wouldn't. So I'm building a gaming rack which will have like in my living room. My kids like to play all eras of games because I don't I want them to have a well-rounded, rich history in video games. So I'm building a gaming rack because I have too much stuff, and I find that the switching things around into the TV has been less than stellar experience for them and for me, because it can't just be a moment where they want to go from let's say the Switch to the GameCube. They can't just do that. So I'm building this gaming rack. I've cut all the wood for it yet, and and in the middle of cutting at the end of cutting the wood, I decided on a design change already. But so it's gonna be a 7-shelf system. It will have the C64, not a Commodore 64. That's actually a recreation of the Commodore 64 that's modern. It uses HDMI out and USB inputs and stuff like that. So that I guess it doesn't really qualify as vintage. Maybe kind of sort of. I don't know. It has I'll have a spot for the Nintendo Switch, the GameCube, original Xbox, a PS3. Nintendo 64, and then an HDMI switcher so I can just switch between them. And then also have all the outputs will be split. So let's say I want to watch Netflix or YouTube or Disney Plus or whatever on the TV, but the kids want to play Twitch or whatever, then they can divert the output to the auxiliary monitor, which will be on top of the rack. And so they can still play, I have to do some sort of wireless headphone thing yet. I haven't had that worked out. I'll get there. But then on the very bottom, a place for putting all the different games. And then the shelves will be deep enough that you can put the controllers behind the consoles as well. So everything can be kept neat and tidy in one area that'll have a footprint of 16 by 24 inches on the living room floor. So instead of it being scattered about, so I don't like having to trip over something. It makes me a little crazy, and it'll force everything into one corner of the living room. So I'm pretty excited about it. I should get it stained today, and hopefully the parts for pegs. Because I decided I wanted adjustable shelves now instead of just fixed. So it's going to be more work, but I'll do blind holes that are for the pegs to be adjusted up or down, by basically an inch up, inch down on each shelf. So in case I decide that I need more space, let's say to pull the switch out or whatever, I can just do that, and then the something above or below will just basically have to deal with that essentially. So yeah, I'm excited. I think this will be it'll be an improvement to my living. My day-to-day living in my house. It'll be easier to keep things clean when everything has a place and everything can be put in its place. You know how that goes, Wendy.
Yes.
A place for everything,
Yes, I do.
everything in its place. I'll have a bill of material. I'll put it on at least on my website, cubiclenight.com. So people, if they want to take the design and make it work for them, they can do that. And also like costs and whatnot. I think it's going to end up costing me like somewhere in the neighborhood of $200. I think when it's all said and done, that's including the HDMI switcher. I missed one part. On the very bottom shelf, I'm putting a spot for all the tablets and phones and things, so the kids can put with like a rack, so they can put it in there and plug it in for the night. And so it's like I'll have a spot for 8 tablets, and I have 5 in the house.
That's something we need to do. I've got a spot where the tablets go, but I need to get an actual docking style station set up. And they all need to have short cords, because one of the problems we've had in our house is I'll get the nice longer cords, and even though they're braided cables, the kids will like plug them in and then sit down on the floor with them. And so I don't know how many cables that need to be tossed, because that charging end has been tweaked so much it won't charge anymore.
Yep, I get that. I got a mixture of cables because I want to see how this works out. I have some short ones and I want to just stay in there for charging. But my guess is, there's probably going to be some times when they want to have it charge and play at the same time. So I have some long ones as well. I got a power strip that has, I want to say it's 6. I can't remember now, 6 or 8 4 amp USB ports. So that should be adequate.
Nice
for that. Yeah. Well, Wendy, now that you heard about my gaming nonsense, what do you have going on?
Well, I don't have anything nowhere near as exciting as that. If anybody who listens to DLN Xtend also listens to Hardware Addicts, you'll know earlier this year, I had a series where so much tech in my house died. And we had a little bit of that last week. I explained that I'm having issues with the earbuds, and we now have another dead coffee maker. So same model. We've had this one not very long, right? It got replaced. And it's dead again. The heating element inside died. So the way that this coffee maker works, I am a bit of a coffee snob. I really like really good coffee. So it's important to me that even if it's drip coffee, it's brewed at the golden temperature. So this is a technically savvy coffee maker. And
nice.
It will monitor the temperature of the water as it's heating and will not start to brew the coffee until the water's at the right temperature. So if the heating element is now bad in the coffee maker, it will never brew your coffee. We have backups, so we were still able to brew a decent cup of coffee that morning, just not with what has been my favorite coffee maker. And since this is the second one that's died with the same exact issue, right? The last one, it went kaput because the heating element is bad. And I know we have hard water, but I do regular maintenance on it. And, but yeah, it's dead, and I'm looking for a new one, which still needs to brew at that golden temperature. I'm a little worried about dropping a lot of money on another coffee pot, worried that, well, what if this one just dies in a year or less like the last two did?
Well,
so
I'm curious, what is the failure mode in the heating element? Was it the actual heating element itself stopped, like there's an open in the circuit and it doesn't actually heat up anymore, or is it a sensor that went bad in the water?
I don't know. And that is one thing that I was planning on doing it this weekend, taking the whole coffee pot apart and just seeing what's wrong with it. What does the heating element look like? What do all the circuits and stuff look like? Am I able to fix it? I don't know. I have been able to see some parts from older models on iFixit, so I might actually be able to swap out some parts from something similar, but an older generation, and make this one work again. I think a lot of our community is very similar in the fact that they love to take things and make them work and try and figure out how to make stuff last longer. I know that seems to be an ongoing thing in our forums. Is I've got this potato of a laptop that's so many years old. What can I put on it and use it for 10 more years? Right? Like
right.
That seems to be a pretty popular thing in our community.
And referring to it as potato is kind of funny.
I actually picked up that term from English Bob. So he's quite a character, and he's back and forth in the Linux gaming side of things. And I don't know where he picked up the term, but computers that are pretty low spec, he'll call them a potato. And so
actually, I can tell you where EB got that.
Where he got it?
That is an old YouTube term back in like the early aughts, when mid-aughts when YouTube was a thing in its infancy. Basically what it was is if you had like the 144p cameras, like the really bad
yeah.
So the ongoing joke was, oh, this was recorded on a potato. The potato has one pixel kind of deal. I mean, that's where
that is funny.
That's where I first heard it. So
the evolution of a term.
Exactly. This episode of DLN Xtend is sponsored by DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean offers the simplest, most developer-friendly cloud platform. It's optimized to make managing and scaling apps easy with an intuitive API, multiple storage options, integrated firewalls, load balancers, and more. DigitalOcean recently announced new features and services such as a virtual private cloud in all regions, free of charge. This lets you create multiple private networks to isolate your workloads. Container registries is now available to all users. Easily store and manage private container images and push images seamlessly to DigitalOcean's Kubernetes. You can get all of this plus access to their world-class customer support for as low as $5 per month. Get started on DigitalOcean for free with a $100 credit by going to do.co/DLN, and you can use that $100 credit for spinning up over a dozen droplets or even some monster-sized droplets for 2 months. Again, you can get started on DigitalOcean with a $100 credit by going to do.co/DLN.
Touched on it a little bit before on the rating system in Proton and how at the beginning it seemed to be fantastic and you could look at a game and know how well it was going to play, and now maybe not so much. So in a conversation before, Nate brought up the fact that he doesn't quite agree where Matt and Jason are standing on the rating system. So it's time to discussion this out.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, so Matt and Jason had did a show together on YouTube. What would we call it, an episode? Something. Matt had an episode on YouTube. Matt always has episodes on YouTube. And
hey
now. About how the ProtonDB is broken, and so I listened to all the points, and Matt, I think you're probably a little more gentle than Jason about it. I would say I disagree. I think I'm going to go ahead and just say that I don't. This is DLN Xtend. This is where we disagree, right? This is where I disagree anyway.
How dare you disagree with my opinion? You're totally not allowed to have an opinion of your own.
So in a nutshell, Proton, for those that aren't totally aware, Proton is kind of been a maybe not a resurgence, but a surgence in Linux gaming that was brought to us by Valve and Codeweavers. They put together this this compatibility layer for a lot of Windows games to work in Linux. And the community got together and put together a Proton database of games and started to what works, what doesn't work, and really got a lot of community involvement in this, from around the world, and it's been really a wonderful thing for those that like to game in Linux. Now, for me, everyone's a little different, but if I can't game the way I want to game, I'm just not going to do it. So I don't. If the game will not work on Linux, I just don't care, I guess is really I should say, if it doesn't work in a console or in Linux, if I have to go to Windows to play a game, I tap out.
Not going to play.
That's just not going to play. It's not worth my time, because either I have to reboot my computer, which I don't do unless I'm doing an update, a kernel update, I should say. And I'm not going to run it in a VM because of its performance. I know I could do the PCI pass through and whatnot using KVM. I'm not going to do that either. So ProtonDB was put together to basically to help users be able to utilize these games. And then the argument came by I can't remember now. Basically, I got mad at both of you and Jason. Matt, not really mad. That's not the right term. I don't get mad. I got I got the dog head tilt thing. Huh?
Yeah, you got the disagreement part.
I got the disagreement part. Yeah. And you're saying that it's broken, and now I've used ProtonDB a little bit, because I do play some games, Matt, even though I don't admit them on the podcast, but I do play games, and so I kind of feel like you guys missed the point of ProtonDB a little bit. I see where you say the ratings are broken because I can't play this game. And you refer to it as the experience or the installation. Help me out here, Matt. What is it?
We were talking about the overall experience. The rated, right. Basically the way ProtonDB currently is structured is it's based off the Wine HQ ratings. So it's platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. And I think Borked is what they did.
Borked. Yep.
The way,
which is a great word.
the way we were looking at it, the approach is from the mainstream. It's not from the Linux tech enthusiast crowd. Those are the people making the reports, which is fine. My point in the entire thing is we are relying on a technical forum to give guidance to normies. And I hate the term normies, but mainstream people, if they're coming over to Linux, and that is the wrong kind of thing to give them, because
basically, if someone looks up who just is a casual gamer and says, "Okay, I'm running Linux," just does the day-to-day stuff. They see a game, says that it's platinum. They go to install that game, and then they find out, well, it's platinum if you do these tweaks and that tweaks and this tweak. So it shouldn't actually be platinum. It should be a lower rating because it takes work to get it to play. You can't just install the game, play it out of the box as though it was on a Windows system.
It's not taking into account the ProtonDB's ratings are based around performance, which is fine. That's how they want to rate it, whatever. But it boils down to we're pointing people in the wrong direction. We need a different tool for the non-technical people to go to, and right. that's where I was sitting with it, because it's a great resource. Don't get me wrong; it's helped me solve problems. That's what that is what it should be for. Not we over rely on it for something that it's not meant for.
Right. And I get that. But I think where I take a little bit of a disagreement, yes, you're correct. I always viewed ProtonDB as a tool for getting my games working. Just like Codeweavers, they have to get your Windows programs working on crossover Linux, or Wine HQ for getting your stuff working on whatever, or even I guess Lutris to a lesser extent. But so I always view this as a resource for problem solving, because that's really what it says it is, right? Basically right in the beginning, what is Proton? So I don't think that the rating system is broken. This is the crux of it. I don't think the rating system is broken. I think it's correct from the standpoint that it works at this level if you do these steps. And there is a way to make it more automated. And maybe that should be a flag in there saying, these, maybe a caveat in there to say it works under these circumstances, which would make it better. But I don't think that
maybe a double rating would be better. Of out of the box, it is this rating. With tweaks, it is this rating.
Well, so the thing is, they have a quote unquote filter that you can use if you go to ProtonDB and type in random game, whatever, GTA 5, sure, whatever. If you click on the little gear thing that is not exactly in the most user-friendly spot to find, and then it gives you the type of reports, and you have the Tinker reports and you have the Steam Play report, and then you can save it. And then It reloads based on Steam Play. That's fine, but I think it'd be a little bit better and easier to find if it was just another tab or something.
Yeah.
Like there are certain things that make this not a great user experience. We've talked on this before, UI, UX, all that kind of stuff. I'm more about the user experience portion of stuff. Like I want people to have a better user experience. Directing somebody to this site that doesn't need the technical help, this isn't going to do them any good, or not enough good. Let me rephrase that. It's not going to answer a question. They're going to go to it with the out of the box assumption. That's why I think the over reliance on ProtonDB is the problem.
No, I totally get and I understand that, but I don't think that there's necessarily it's wrong to have an over reliance on it, because you have to have some place, some repository that allows the community of gamers to work together to get something working and to improve it from there. And that's what I think it was as a tool. And actually, Michael and I had a disagreement on this too, because I said it was more of a tool for people to, tinkers initially, at least anyway, and to get people, to get things working. And I just feel like maybe that the way you and Jason kind of hashed it out, you kind of missed that historical piece of it, that this is what it's for.
No, I didn't miss that, because I remember when ProtonDB was literally an overglorified Google Doc.
Right. So in the early days,
basically.
In the early days. So no, I didn't miss it, because I contributed some to that. Like, the point is, though, we weren't using things like Glorious Egg Roll. We weren't using you changed some boot tweaks maybe in the launcher options, but you weren't sitting here and using wine tricks and proton tricks, and you have to roll in this custom version of Proton and then slapping a gold rating on it or a platinum rating on it. Yeah, performance-wise, sure.
And that's
But
definitely
not the
been
installation.
my biggest issue with it is I'd look up a game, especially, like the series of Sonic games that we have. And when it comes to wine, I am wholly and totally incompetent. I am willing to say that 100%. So you start looking at some of them and I'm like, oh, it's a gold rating. Oh, so I should be able to get it to play without too much fuss and then get into it and start reading what people are doing. And it hits the point of I had 10 minutes to get this game going for my daughter. I don't have time to sit and figure out all of these little side angles. And so I've told her that she could play thinking that it was a gold rated game, only to find out I don't have an hour and a half, 2 hours to make this work. And part of it is because my incompetence when it comes to wine.
Right. That makes sense. And I get that, which is probably why the conversation went to like what could be a fix or a patch. There's another site that you were talking about, Matt, or was it about where?
It was Jason. It's a demo site more than anything else. I think it's
okay.
It's from Liam from over on Gaming on Linux.
Okay.
But like as an example, I'm sitting here looking at a silver rated game that's going up to a gold. That's the trend. But every one of these are tinker reports. The tinker. This one significant bugs. That's not so that'd be more of a bronze experience. It's like, oh, you have to install the Microsoft MF install fonts and stuff. Then you have to add this launch option on command. And then, you have to use Glorious Egg Roll. Okay.
Right. And I think I think that's actually fine as long as they write it out. And there should be a way to automate that. Like that would give the next person who cares time to, I've actually built for Codeweavers, like those install scripts to actually take care of that for you. I'm pretty sure it's similar to what they use in Lutris. But so that then allows the next person to take that to the next level and be able to build on that and make that installation process even better. You know what I mean? You know what I'm getting at with that?
No. So therefore, then it makes the experience, the generic overall experience better for insert user here. Your install process. Well, this is all stuff that might be rolled into Proton, and et cetera, whatever. Is essentially what you're saying. And I get that point, but I'm saying we have to look at stuff from beyond just it always has to be a help form or a repository for knowledge. Yes, repositories for knowledge are great. They should be active. We should promote it. But it's the over reliance on it, and it's like it doesn't help in that regard to be over reliant. This is the part you're going to hate, Nate. People don't want to do more than 2 clicks. They are that is generic.
Sometimes you don't have time for more than 2 clicks.
It is not. I'm not slagging on normal people. I'm not slagging because I'm the same way now. I've gotten to the point where I look at this stuff and I'm like, I don't have time, nor do I care. And I'm more than technically adept to do all this stuff, but it's just to the point where it's like, do I want to sit here and tinker or do I want to sit here and actually have enjoyment? Because for some people, they get the enjoyment from tinker.
Enjoyment out of the tinker.
Totally cool. Report, make the project better. Awesome. But we can't seriously sit here and say that we're going to point 99% of people to the 1% that actually use it, because that is they're not looking for the same thing. So you can call it catering, you can call it whatever you want. At the end of the day, let the 1% have what they need, which is ProtonDB, and we can direct the I just want to click the big blue install button and the big green play button people to another site. Pull from ProtonDB, pull fixes in, pull like run scripts and all that, like automated scripts and that kind of stuff. Totally cool with that. But I've yet to see any of that kind of stuff happen.
Well, I think some of it has been done. I mean, if you look at from a Lutris anyway, they actually have their database that they actually have all the tweaks and runtimes fixed on install. It's only a slight step to get that over working with Steam. I imagine it's going to work in Steam as well, something along those lines. I mean, I'm using ProtonDB patched versions of Wine to make certain applications work for me. So it's not a, to me, without things like ProtonDB and Lutris, you're not going to get it's a building, and you have to if the community wants to take it to the next level. The way I see it, people have to make it a priority to take this information and build out the layer of ease of installation on top of that, which is why I don't think the rate. Because I mean, like for me, let's say I want to take some time and I want to get let's say Grand Theft Auto. Not that I say I play that game, but let's say I have. I want to get that working easier to to install. I'm not saying that's an actual issue, but it just kind of popped up on the list here. So I see that it runs at let's say at a platinum level. Okay. But it has all these other steps to make it work. Now, me as someone who's passionate about Grand Theft Auto, I can go through and analyze what it needs. And then I can create that script to make it so when someone goes to install it, that it's a one-click install. But without this database of information and of resources saying all these things work well, it is worth your time now to get this thing working a lot easier. Then now that enables me to be able to do that, because maybe I don't have the time to figure out all the little nitnoid issues that need to be, what components need to put together. But I can certainly put together that script that makes it all work. You know what I'm saying? And so to me, that's the power of ProtonDB from my perspective, is someone has done all the hard work for me. It's just now they go the last 5%, the last 10% to make everything be a smooth experience from end to end. But that takes some time and a little finesse and a little going through. And it's something that I've
definitely
done
get where both of you are saying. For me, it is, I wish the ratings are more consistent. So if there is a rating of, okay, it works platinum after you've done the tweaks, after you've run this script, I would like a out of the box rating after you've messed with it rating. So if it's platinum on both sides, great. So I can say, look, if I've got 2 seconds, say, look at the game. Yep, I can absolutely get this game downloaded and installed for you and you can play. Or we can go ahead and download the game, but it'll be such and such time before I can fix it for you to work on. And not every person has that kind of constraint for me, right? As I do, I'm usually installing games for kids, because the games that I play myself are, for the most part, native Linux games. So I don't have to worry about, is it going to work for me? But it's games for the kids, different kind of things. We have quite a few of the Lego games, which some have worked well and some haven't. And on the quick note, it would be nice. Yep, it works great out of the box. I can tell you, sure, yep, you can play that game right now. Or no, you need to pick a different game because it's going to be such and such time before I can go through and set it up properly.
Yep, I get it. There probably should be I agree. There should be some sort of a caveat on the rating system of, this is not a quick install. Is it a quick install, a quick setup? Yes or no, and leave it at that. And I think that shouldn't affect the actual rating of it.
Well, again, it's because you're seeing this as a repository for people who are willing to tinker. That to your point, that was the original intent of this. But Wendy's point is more time-based, more, I don't mean it when I say normie in a mean way, Wendy, but like more the average user approach to tech, where it's just, it needs to work. And I think it's different approaches. You're going to have people who want to tinker, like you mentioned, Nate, or write a script or whatever, or add the code that they need to Proton to make it work better, roll in stuff from Glorious Egg Roll into Proton, however they want to make it work. It's just different approaches. The approach for if you do all these steps, it's native performance, and then you have nothing on the other side to counterbalance that. So there's an over-reliance on the more technical stuff. So more normal people who come to that resource are going to be, I don't want to say flooding the system, but they're going to be viewing the system in the wrong way anyway, because they don't understand how the system was intended to be. So you need a resource for that normal people, that normal crowd, where it's at a glance. It's, to me, the ProtonDB ratings right now are not something you would take at a glance, unless you enable with a filter that could be better found within their website. And that is where I take that's where I take the issue. And that's kind of the perspective I come from. I get where you're coming from, though, as a resource of knowledge and fixes and issues and that kind of stuff. Call it a bug tracker. Fantastic. I was gonna say, call it a bug tracker, call it whatever you want. It is a fantastic resource. I've used it to solve some of my own issues, some complicated, some not, and I'm totally fine with that. To me, again, it's the over-reliance on it when it's not meant to be relied on by an entire crowd, but a very specific crowd.
No, I can see that. I just take a little bit of exception to the idea that it's broken, though, because the other thing too is, all these games are a moving target anyway, and also, let's wind this back a little bit too. Gaming on Windows, which I used to do at one time, it was just as much of a headache, if not more. I mean, I remember having to mess with drivers and mess with DLLs and everything else just to get games working back in the day when I call that my computer dark ages. But and so, I mean, it's games have always pushed the envelope and have always been a difficult thing to basically keep running nicely. And it really hasn't been since Steam that things seem to actually run pretty great. I mean, as a whole, not everything, but as a whole, for gaming on x86 PC type systems, whether that's Windows or Linux. I mean, Linux native gaming has been often a headache. I've got some old Linux games that I bought in the early aughties, if we may call that now, that don't run. That I can't get to run. So I mean, Proton at least gives me I have better compatibility with old Windows games on Linux than I do old Linux games on Linux. For what it's worth,
or even old Windows games on Windows, because I know I've talked about the Windows game, the Sonic Windows game, that not only was I struggling to get it to work on Linux, but then since we had to have a Windows system for Minecraft Education Edition, tried to install it there, and nope, can't get it to run there either.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, everything's always going to have problems. Linux native gaming, Mac gaming, Windows, take your pick, whatever. You're going to have the degradation of code essentially for incompatibilities and engines or whatever. For me, it just boils down to I have no problem messing with DLLs. I have no, I used Resident Evil 6 as an example when I was that video I did with Jason. I mentioned that it was simply a drag and drop and a replacement of I believe it was the movie files, because they're a different codec. And that's fine. That is legit no different than drag and dropping a DLL or a different, executable or whatever for Windows stuff. That's a level that probably about as far as most users are going to be willing to go. When you start getting into the Proton tricks and wine tricks and the various different custom roles of Proton and stuff, then you're getting into a whole different level. And that's where you have that, okay, you're a tinkerer, you like to make things work. Here's the other portion of the crowd. And I just think that we get so caught up in the tinkering that we always never look at the other side.
And you can be a tinkerer on a different level, right? Because there's things that I love to tinker with and things that I don't. And I really am not a big gamer. And since my oldest daughter since she really enjoys it, she's the one that needs to learn how to make all of that work, because I don't enjoy tinkering with game stuff. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, for some people, they just want to sit down, hit the play button, and it works.
Right.
And we, as Linux folk, we're toot our own horn. We tend to be more technically minded. Not always, not all users. Obviously, there are some that are not. But really, at the end of the day, it boils down to just using and understanding that there are different sides to a community, and that's really the thing. And we always cater to the more technical aptitude side, and we hear about the supposed new users or the whatever, and we just kind of brush them off. And that's why I'm kind of passionate about the ProtonDB ratings and stuff, because I think it's catering to that side, and we're pointing this crowd to that source, and that's not the source they should be pointed at if that's not what they need, i.e. technical help.
This episode of DLN Xtend is brought to you by Bitwarden. Bitwarden is the easiest, safest way for individuals, teams, businesses, and organizations to store their passwords. The fact that Bitwarden is not only open source but has had third-party security testing done is one reason I have chosen to trust them with my passwords. On their blog, they have recently announced another third-party security review has been completed. They have the security assessment available for anyone to review. My favorite part of the report, and I quote, "No exploitable vulnerabilities were discovered." Thank you, Bitwarden, for offering such a feature-rich password manager and making security checks a priority. You can get started with a free account by going to bitwarden.com/DLN. Want to support this open source project and help them continue to conduct third-party security audits? That support starts at only $10 a year. Jump over to bitwarden.com/DLN to learn more. That is a fantastic point to wrap up that discussion on. Are we coming to a complete close? No, but we don't always have to agree on everything. And it's fantastic to hear what everybody's opinions are, and we would love to hear your opinions on this topic. So switching gears, but also staying in the same somewhat pathway, what game do you have this week for us, Matt?
You always assume I have a game that I'm going to make a suggestion about, and I don't know why. Oh, well, yeah, I kind of do, but that's totally
because you do.
No, never, Wendy. I would never, ever, ever try to make people.
So what's it called?
I would never make people try to part with their money. Never. So the game recommendation that I would have is one called The Council. Now, seeing how we just talked about ProtonDB, I'm going to say this is platinum. I can say from my own experience, having played it totally on Linux, that it is literally hit install button, play button, it plays, have fun.
Boom. The ratings work great. So now we agree.
Not normally.
Don't start that again.
Not anyway. So this game is a episodic historic game with some supernatural elements. It's really kind of a hard game to describe. If it's a more slow grind, it's more of a character interaction kind of game. If you've played any of the Telltale games, like the Walking Dead games or any of the Batman games or any of that kind of stuff, then it's kind of in that vein. Difference is your choices got to actually matter. If you want a very story focused game, this is definitely a game to get. I really enjoy it. The first episode's free, so it gives you an idea of like how the game plays and feels and that kind of stuff. So I believe it's $20, I think, for the entire season, if I remember correctly, or 25, sorry. And I would say it's totally worth it. Multiple playthroughs, you end up dealing with and interacting with historic characters because you play. I can't remember the actual last name, but your character is Louis. He plays a part from the French Revolution. And so you're interacting with like Napoleon Bonaparte and George Washington and a bunch of different stuff. And it's really interesting to kind of have that interaction. It's a different take on a game, not one that you would normally see made. And that's what makes it really cool.
Well, from like a historical perspective, I would like to actually just, this might be a good way to at least like right now I'm studying with my kids, early America, the time of George Washington and whatnot. So this is actually very cool as far as, this is probably not the right thing for my kids because it looks a little bit, maybe not kid friendly.
Adultish.
But
yeah,
later on, as my kids were to get older and be able more, it would be more in their wheelhouse, I guess you could say. Things like this, I think, are good, even if they're not necessarily historically accurate or whatnot. If nothing else, it can provide a conversation about that time in history. This is what the history books say. Here's the take the video game has on it. So there's it's a neat idea as far as utilizing a bit of history to talk about it, make it forefront in your mind, and to disagree with, if they have something that's way off, to disagree with it.
Well, Nate, don't worry. It has stuff that's way off, so you'll definitely disagree with it.
And I have no problem doing that. But I'm just saying, like the idea though, to have the conversations is to me is important to have.
And the reason that I do like this particular game is that it makes you think. It has like the typical like Illuminati feel and that kind of stuff like that. That's why it's called The Council. You're supposed to be making directions for like what the world and that kind of stuff. But like the historical context and interaction with people, personal kind of interactions, like when you interact with like Napoleon Bonaparte, you realize he does have a god complex. or a short man complex, whatever. Sorry, you know what I mean.
Something.
Yeah.
But you get kind of like a characteristic of why. It's just that kind of stuff where it's a little more nuanced, and it's like, okay, you view potentially the historical accuracy in a different light because you might have a different understanding of how maybe that person actually was. So Nate, what's on your plate?
Well, I always have lots of things on my plate. I told you about my gaming rack that I blame you for. But because of Wendy, so I can blame her now, I did get like a real camera, not just using my phone to take pictures, but a real camera. And Wendy, I apologize for all the messages I sent you and the harassment. That was not
a problem. I told you could.
But it was intentional. So I got the A5100 from Sony. So it's a mirrorless, it has a removable lens. Like, I'm still learning about this thing, and it's very, very cool. I don't know what an E-mount is, but it has that. Oh, but it has what I think is a really neat feature. Like, not that I'm into taking selfies, but if you want to, like, let's say you're doing a vlog and you want to record yourself, you can actually flip the screen up and you can look at yourself. So instead of having, two lenses, obviously, like on a phone, you can flip the screen forward. There's all these different like little features and whatnot. I don't understand. Like, it does right now. I have everything set kind of an automatic until I can really really learn the different features and whatnot of it. But I'm taking it. Also, I bought some LED like lighting and so forth, and they have like camera mount screws on it as well. Does that make any sense? So I can do like video with mounts and such and on tripods. So what I'm trying to do is, my goal is, and I have some footage already. It's just a matter of me cutting it up. But I'm doing. I want to do a little more of the video content creation. My hiatus that I had for a few weeks has made me fall behind in like my kids' education. So I got to get caught up there first. But once I'm caught up and I can spend a little more time on the content creation, I want to do some more videos and such. I want to try and learn and experiment and do whatnot. So I'm getting ready to put out a lot of garbage on YouTube that nobody's going to watch, but it'll be for my own personal education. So I'm really excited about that.
That is exciting, and good luck on your video journey. I always love it when people say that not only did they buy a camera, but they're enjoying the camera that they've bought. It doesn't do you any good if you buy a camera and then you absolutely hate it. So I'm glad this is one that you're enjoying, and video is still one of those things that's kind of touch and go for me. Like, I can do it. It's more like the editing part that I'm still learning. So maybe we can learn some of that together. I know that's one of my goals. I'm not quite so behind on schoolwork, but schoolwork has made me way behind on like Instagram and that kind of stuff and some other content creation that I want to do. So maybe that'll be a back and forth. Yeah. So you can be learning.
It's a hard balance.
It is. It really is.
So Wendy, what have you got going on?
I am actually going to take a page from Matt's book this week. You've covered some fantastic camera stuff, which is typically my forte. But last weekend, I bought a game on Humble Bundle. It was on sale, and I did go ahead and look at ProtonDB to see what the ratings were.
Was this a game I made any recommendation on?
Unfortunately, no.
So I can't even blame the
purchase on you.
That is not true, Matt. You can be blamed for all game purchases from this point forward, since you are the
forever and ever and ever.
You're not only the DLN, but the greater gaming community enabler, as far as I'm concerned. So yes, you are responsible.
The graphics looked absolutely amazing. So it's called Luna, and it's about a little bird and its adventure to bring the moon back together, essentially. So I fell in love with it because, the graphics were absolutely gorgeous. Well, at least the idea of it. But I said that it was kind of a relaxing puzzle type game. So when I took a dive into it, I paid less than $4 for the game on sale. It is unfortunately no longer on sale. But if it's a game that you end up hearing about and you like, I'll take another page from Matt's book. Go ahead and get it. But as far as gameplay goes, it ended up not really being a game that I enjoyed all of that much. And I do enjoy a little bit of story with the games, and I do like some of the more, I guess, relaxing games, partially because I suck at shooters. I've mentioned several times that we own the 2016 Doom, but I can't make it past the first level. And my daughter will say, Mom, move and shoot, move and shoot. And I'm like, I'm trying, but then I can't keep. I die. I just die. They're not that I don't enjoy playing them, because I had fun on the last DLN game night playing them. I'm just not good at them. So when I sit down to play a game that not only will I enjoy, but that I can be somewhat good at, it's more the relaxing style that I like. And Luna is definitely along those lines. It's a very relaxing game. I expected the puzzle parts of it to be a little more difficult. So this game really is focused more on the story than it is on the actual user interaction. So if you want something that has a calm story and is kind of interesting and nature related, this is a great game for you. But if you're wanting something where the puzzles take more than like a minute, this isn't a game for you. Hands down, beautiful graphics, fantastic soundtrack, nice overall story of the game. just wasn't what I was wanting on the puzzle side of it.
I'm turning Wendy into a gamer slowly.
I noticed
you're getting there. Yeah.
and so like, Wendy's now investing a lot of time in gaming. So I'm hoping that maybe that there's some sort of that Wendy, maybe along with like, I don't know, maybe you, Matt, if you guys did some sort of gaming thing, on maybe you guys could stream some of your gaming for us to sit on your digital couch.
Game.
Yeah.
We could maybe possibly, we'd have to maybe Wendy, we could do Override.
Oh, no, that would be fun. Yeah.
It's fun to sometimes like I wouldn't buy this game, but it would be kind of, it's for me anyway, when there's people in the community, like in Destination Linux community that, that are sometimes doing streaming. And I like to, like, if let's say I'm home, let's say it's a Saturday afternoon, I'm not recording DLN Xtend or anything like that. Then it's nice to like put somebody on that's doing some streaming, just like as I'm folding laundry or whatever, just kind of, it's like I'm sitting on their digital couch, and just kind of shooting the breeze with them. And I think it'd be kind of fun, even if it's not like a huge thing, you have to make a big announcement, but like, just, every once in a while, it'd be nice to people in the community. This is actually a call out to anybody in the community, not just you, Wendy. But, if you're going to do some game streaming, let us know. Maybe if you can do something like, let us know ahead of time in the discourse forum. And so we can join you on your e-couch and maybe some, chat at you and whatnot. That's just my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth.
And if it's Dust Geek, will totally harass you and watch you as you stare at the floor or the sky a lot. For those that don't know what that means he dies a lot.
Yeah,
now,
I get it.
I may not be good at playing the first-person shooter games, but I am really good at giving DOS Geek crap while playing the first-person shooter games.
See, that's good for everybody.
Love you, Ryan.
We'd like to continue this discussion with you on Telegram, in Discourse, Mumble, or Discord. Visit the DLN website for information on how to connect with us on social channels, other shows, and the creators on DestinationLinux.Network. For more info, you can find Nate at
cubiclenate.com. Links to my regular written blatherings, podcast, and YouTube stuff can be found there.
And you can find me on Twitter at MattDLN.
And you can find me on Instagram at Linux and Lifts. I promise I will get better at getting some stuff posted. I am getting this crazy school schedule figured out. We thank you for joining us. And until next time, have a great week, everybody.